Hi, everybody. It's Lori and Lawrence back on the air for another famous Flat, Free, and Awake hangout. And thank you for joining us. And we've got quite a bit of different things to talk about this week. Some of it will be sort of educational. Some of it will be opinion. We're going to talk about some ideas, things that Lawrence has been learning and researching, as well as I. And for the most part, we're just going to chit-chat, just like we always do. So welcome. Thanks for joining us. And what are you up to, Lawrence?
Well, I wasn't sure what I was going to talk about today. I usually have a few things in my head as to, a lot of it's the stuff that I put on Facebook in the week. So because if it gets a lot of interest there, then it may be interest on here. But something caught my attention this morning, and this was a video put out by Lord Stephen Christ, and it was with regard to Antarctica, where, let me just read it out a little bit. It was in Antarctica, and it was called The Adventures of Hercules, and it was about doing things with aeroplanes. And the aeroplane was going to fly from McMurdo to Davis, the two research stations. And the interesting thing about that was the plane journey was 5.6 hours. And Lord Stephen Christ showed where these two stations were on the infamous AE map. And he showed the route going around the curve of the edge of the, this ice wall that we keep getting told about. And he reckoned it came out at something like nearly 19,000 miles, the journey. But the journey, in fact, is under 2,000 miles. And so it makes a complete mockery of the AE map. So what I did, I thought, right, well, I'm going to plot this out on my map. So I retrieved the map that I started, the Calignan map, and then I decided to have a look at it on the Mercator map. And then I decided to plot it out as near as I could on the AE map or the Gleason map. So I got all three maps and plotted them all out to show how far it is on those maps, and people can draw their own conclusions. So let me just screen share for a second, because I've got something on here I want to bring up if I can. I don't know, but it'll come off if I'm not on the top. That side. There we go. Oh yeah, let's have a look. This one. Does that come up? Do we have that?
Yes.
You can see the Hercules thing, yeah? So this is it. All right, so I looked up Hercules aircraft. That's the ones that they use, the ones that Jaren says they've got no windows. So these are the military aircraft that they use for flying between to and from Antarctica. So it has a maximum speed of 417 miles an hour and a range of 2,071 miles. So this Hercules flew from Davis to McMurdo in Antarctica, and the distance on the globe on a Great Circle route would be 1675 miles, because I looked it up. Flight time was 5.6 hours, so the average speed was just short of 300 miles an hour. So then you compare the distances from Davis to McMurdo on different maps. On the AE map, straight line distance is 16,100 miles. Mercator map, straight line distance, 14,655. And on the globe, as I said before, 1675 is a Great Circle route. And on the Calignan map, the straight line distance is 1,100 miles. So the only map that comes anything close to the globe is the Calignan. The Mercator is hopelessly out, as is the AE map. So I've got the map, so let me just bring this down and shut that down a second. I'll unscreen share it if I can. Have I got rid of the screen share now?
Yes, you have.
Right, so hang on. So I've got the maps, so just a second.
Oh, you have like real maps this time, huh?
Come on. So.
Well, that's actually good, because that's better than screen share.
Right.
If you listening to this on a podcast,
I'm going to lay this one out.
Do your own
map
plotting.
So just stick that down with some tubs or something so you can see it. There's one. Coconut oil tubs. Another one. Some salt. Pink salt. There we go. So what I did, I'll stick my cup on there. So is that coming up on the screen?
You just cracked me up, Lawrence, with your technology.
Can you see me? All right. So what I did, you know that the finger that comes down on.
Okay, you gotta hold that thing still, or you're gonna make me dizzy.
Right. Can you see the? Can you see the finger that I've extended on this Gleason map?
The one that's broken off on all the other maps that show what time it is wherever it's supposed to be, because that's what that was designed for, as a timepiece and not a map. Okay, go ahead.
Right. So I drew it all into the end. So you've got, all the way to the 90 degrees south. So we've got Davis Station here. Can you see my finger where it is? Yeah, yes. Davis. Yeah, got Davis, and then we're moving round. There's McMurdo. Can you see McMurdo? Yeah. Okay. And a straight line route would go directly over Australia. Assuming it's 25,000 miles across, then would be 16,100 miles. Lord Stephen Christ did a route that went around the ice wall, which was just short of 19,000 miles. So he's worked it out right. He's assumed that they'd fly in a circular route. So that map's impossible, isn't it? Because the distance is, it's under 2,000 miles. But on there, it's, what, eight or nine times further. So that was that map. So then we get the Mercator. Where's that gone? Oh, yeah. We have a Mercator map.
Okay.
This is the Mercator. Stick the Mercator down on top of that. There we go. And on the Mercator,
I love Lawrence for all this effort he goes through to show you guys what in the heck is going on. Most people
Murdo Station.
All this trouble.
Can you see where my finger is? No.
Yes, now I can.
That's on the left side of the map, and then 3/4 of the way across, you've got Davis Station, which is actually marked on this map.
Okay, you need to point. You need to point south a little bit more with your camera, Lawrence.
South.
Point down more. Yeah, there you go.
Davis.
Okay.
McMurdo. Yeah. So that distance, anyway, it's 25,000 miles across. So just short of, and that distance came out at what was I say, was 16,100 miles. So obviously the Mercator map's a load of crap, which we knew anyway, because it's all skewed away from the middle. And then I got the one I spent ages drawing.
Oh,
which was
calling now.
This one. I only drew in Australia. So there's my Collignum map. Let's get that one out.
Collignon, Collignon, for those of you who don't know what the heck he's talking about. Collnon, Collignon. It's a French word, French name. Go ahead, Lawrence.
Just roll that out so you can see it.
We're looking at the Great Rift on the table or something right now.
Right, so there's my... this is the Collignum map.
Okay, that's the one that's shaped like a diamond, folks.
Anyway, you can see right at the bottom. Can you see McMurdo?
Yep.
There, can you read it? Yeah, and there you've got Davis. So they're very close. And on this map, it's working out at about 1,100 miles. Now, when you look at the route between those two places, it's quite an exaggerated curve. So that would explain the distance between this and the globe. So the Collignum map is the closest representation to that. Now, you notice that Lord Stephen Christ and all these other people who try and debunk flat Earth, and they're coming up every day. They're all pushing forward this AE map to debunk flat Earth. They never debunk this. Nobody's debunked it yet. I mean, it gets mentioned occasionally that there's a diamond map, blah, and they just use it as, oh, there's all sorts of maps, this, that, and the other. Nobody's debunked this. In terms of distances between places, it's by far the most accurate map that we've got on a world map. So anyway, thanks to Lord Stephen Christ. If you're watching, doubt whether he doesn't watch us, he doesn't bother with us, but if anybody mentions it to him, then debunk this map. And while you're at it, Lord Stephen, I know we weren't going to talk names today, I'm yet to see your concave Earth map of the world. It would be useful for you to show us what your map looks like, because nobody's seen it yet.
Well, that's because I don't think there is one, Lawrence. Well, the whole idea of debunking the AE map was all by design, in my opinion. And it was the reason why the AE map was introduced into the flat Earth community via some of the top names, but also as a leftover reintroduction from Samuel Robotham, who had that AE type map, or a Gleason type map, as his map and model that he and his Zetetic Society buddies were using or implementing. So there's nothing new under the sun about that map. There's also nothing new under the sun about these old maps surfacing suddenly that we talked about last week. Even the 1,000-year-old map that was found in Hawaii, I believe, in some newspaper. So the whole idea of these circular maps is for multiple reasons, but one, the most important reason, is because they don't work. So they're easy to debunk, and they're easy to make flat earthers who build maps and models around them to look, pretty ignorant, pretty unscientific. If you can't even do the measurements and the mileage, of course, then people will say, well, where are you getting this mileage from? Are you using government issued, websites or whatever? Well, yeah, we're comparing that, but most of the numbers are coming from the airlines. And, you can try as you might to debunk the numbers and the times and the distances that they're using. But in comparison, we know that planes fly at about X miles per hour. And if you convert the time to the distance plus the flight times and the miles per hour, it's pretty hard to debunk that. So if you can debunk that first before you apply that to the AE map and model, but we also know that they do plot great circle routes for their flights. We don't know why they do that, whether it's, people that use the AE map use the great circle route to show, look, it's a straight line on the AE map. Well, of course it is, because the AE map is nothing but a smashed down globe. And the AE map that we're using for so-called the flat Earth map is nothing but a flattened out globe with the North Pole at the center. You can arbitrarily decide to move the center of an azimuthal equidistant map and make New Zealand the center if you want, and everything smashes out from there. So that's the purpose of utilizing an AE map, is for measuring distances from point A to point B on a flat surface. So until people get that part through their head, we're going to be making this same argument over and over and over again.
Yeah, and I was doing a bit of thinking today just for a change, and prior to flat Earth, the biggest subject in truth community was chemtrails. You know, it was by far the biggest, and some people just did it exclusively to everything else. They just focused on that because they thought it was affecting them directly and could impair their health. You know, and endless pages and groups came up, and the Facebook was flooded with this stuff day after day after day, week in, week out. And conversation on, I called it chemtrails and the flat Earth last year, and I changed my tune from my first presentation, where I was taking them as a real threat to our health, to an alternative view that they're a psyop in terms of, you know, they're just there to distract people from other stuff, so they focus all their attention on it, and, you know, maybe not observe anything else that's going on. And flat Earth, albeit true, it could be in a similar vein, because people are, you know, they're focusing all their attention on it, and the other things that they previously looked at, they don't look at anymore. And the reason why chemtrails is because there is no evidence that we are being sprayed with chemicals. Where did the word chemtrails come from? You know, it's chemical trails. Nobody's actually collected the exhaust fumes of an aircraft and had them analysed, but people have collected the rainwater and analysed that, and I've done it myself to see, you know, what's in it in terms of parts per million. And rainwater typically has 8 parts per million dissolved solids, which is, you know, next to nothing, which is normal. The rainwater today, you know, unless you're in a heavily polluted area, you're going to get about 8 parts per million total dissolved solids. And when you look at the rainwater tests from Chemtrails Project UK, and there's, you know, hundreds of tests done all over the UK and some parts of Europe, all the water's coming out fine. There's very low or negligible or zero levels of the alleged contaminants of what's the stuff? Aluminium oxide, strontium, and barium. They're just trace levels at best. Most of them are showing, you know, off the scale that they can't even be read. The levels are so low. So these contaminants that we were told are in the water, they're not. The water's fine. But people are taking it at face value that what they read is true, and they don't even realise that aluminium oxide is not damaging to health. It's actually good for your health. Aluminium oxide is the same stuff as bentonite. Now, I take bentonite, you just mix it with water, it's inert, it passes through the body, but it binds to heavy metals in the gut. So if you're trying to remove heavy metals that have accumulated in your gut, then you take some bentonite, mix it with water and drink the stuff, and it binds with it, and it comes out the other end, and you clear some of the heavy metals out of your body. It's a very, you know, it's otherwise known as a healing clay, and there's different colours of it, but they're all aluminium oxide. And aluminium oxide in itself is not soluble. It won't dissolve in water, so it'll form a suspension. So this stuff, because it does not dissolve in water, cannot find its way into the food chain, even if it was harmful, which it isn't. So we've been told a pack of lies about chemtrails. So, you know, aside from what we're told, I'm thinking it's a big diversionary tactic to divert truth seekers away from looking at other stuff that maybe the powers that be don't want us to look at. Maybe there's other stuff out there that, you know, that they're planning, or, you know, or we're not aware of. And I know you were big on chemtrails, Laurie, for quite some time, and you know, it doesn't take up much of your time now because you're probably, I'm not exactly sure what your views are, but you're probably taking a similar view to myself, that what we're seeing is lines painted in the sky, but there's no chemicals.
Well, I'm going to say this. Yes, I did spend quite a bit of time on chemtrails. I never spent more time on chemtrails to the detriment of all of the other truth-seeking researching that I was doing, because for lack of evidence, I didn't fly around up there and follow a plane around. I actually had someone who said, "Why don't you do that? Why don't you fly, rent a plane and a pilot and fly behind some of these big jets?" And it's like, well, for one thing, you have no idea ahead of time. You just have to be up there like waiting for one, for one thing. For seconds, you would have to have some method of collection that you could do scientifically. And I did fear chemtrails. I got just as sucked in to the fear machine as most other people do. There's going to be people who will listen to this and they will totally throw me out of their friends list or off the team, so to speak, because I no longer put full-time or even that much effort into chemtrails anymore. And many of the reasons are what Lawrence just said. But the main reason was when I came to the conclusion in my own mind that these people who would be in charge of spraying these chemicals, these death dumps, as well, I can't remember his name anymore, I used to call them, they have friends and family here on Earth, just like I do, and they would be poisoning their own. They would be poisoning their own friends, their own family. And then people said, well, they have methods of removing the metals from their body, and what was it, monatomic gold, and all different kinds of methods suspected. But the idea is fear is very unhealthy in and of itself. So if you're oversaturated with fear and what you perceive to be danger, then that's pretty unhealthy all by itself. If you're one who believes, can look at the chemtrails and say, ha ha ha, look how we're scaring those rat bastards completely out of their skin, then, if you're a psychopath, then that would sound really cool to you. But until there is direct evidence, I've gotten off of that idea of chemtrails being directly deadly, any more deadly than any of the other things that are coming down the path to poison us, like
I mean
all the other crap being put out by large corporations and cities dumping their waste into the lakes and streams and so on and so on. And then also add to that, Lawrence, on that same line of thought. Okay, so let's say, for example, chemtrails came along and that was supposed to be our distraction. And then Flat Earth was released, and let's say that was the next distraction. After 9/11 was a distraction, okay? And or if you just want to lump all false flag events as a distraction. And then now this newest thing, the Mandela effect, has taken quite a bit of time and effort from a whole lot of other researchers who weren't looking at that at all. And now suddenly, people are researching that just relentlessly, finding every kind of connection. And I've watched a few of the videos and presentations that other people have made, and it's really interesting because in one presentation that I watched, there was a test that you took, and it said, answer these questions, fill in the blank, more or less. And it was the pretty common ones. One was interview with blank vampire, fill in the blank. Sex blank the city, fill in the blank, and on it went. And it even went down to the one about the old commercial for Sara Lee desserts or whatever you call it. And I started singing the little ditty in my head, everybody doesn't like something. Nobody doesn't like Sara Lee. And then I filled in the blank. And then he said, if you said doesn't, you are in a different timeline than I am, because I remembered nobody does it like Sara Lee does it like Sara Lee. And I thought, well, that makes absolutely no sense. Why would you say a double negative? Because, why would you say a double negative on the first part? So I went into all of this thinking, and I thought, what the hell? If they've changed things, there's not a damn thing I can do about it except be aware. One of these videos went into scripture, and he opened up his Bible and he showed where his Bible said, and another Bible said wineskins, and it's the same verse scripture. And so I thought, okay, I'll go look. I mean, if they came in my house and changed the Bible that I've had for since 1993, that's I know said wineskins because I've read it before. And if it says bottles now, I'm going to go, oh, what the hell? But it said wineskins. Okay, mine did. So it's is it a distraction? Yes, it is. Is it real? It could be, but it's still a distraction. Is the earth flat? Yeah. But is it a distraction? Yeah, it is. It's a distraction from all the other things. But for many people, it's included in all the other things. So is that where you were going with the distraction idea?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think with this Mandela effect, I think what they're trying to do is to put doubt into your mind that you got it wrong the first time. I remember when I was 7 years old and went to see Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and the evil queen, whoever she was, and she looked into the mirror and said something like, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest one of all?" And now they're saying it's magic mirror on the wall. Well, it could have been magic mirror. I just don't remember, but it was two M's, magic mirror or mirror, mirror. And now they're trying to say,
again, there you go. See, I remember mirror, mirror on the wall too. I mean, as a matter of fact, we used to recite that when we were kids. We would look in the mirror, we'd dress up in costumes and put lipstick on our faces and laugh and look in the mirror and say, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? And so you don't just suddenly not remember it right. Okay, so it was
magic mirror doesn't resonate with me. I would have said, if somebody had asked me, I'd have said mirror, mirror.
Right. Okay. So the idea with that though is, I, as a questioner, a researcher, okay, I'm going to go online and I'm going to look for an old copy, the original copy somebody posted online of Sleeping Beauty, or whatever that was that? Yeah. And see what it says. And sure enough, it's the old movie, the one that I saw when I was a kid. And sure enough, the Queen says, magic mirror on the wall. And I went, huh? What? She'd said it. Okay. And it was the same thing with somebody said they've changed Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader saying to Luke Skywalker when he cuts his hand off and, in the fight that I remember it. He said, "Luke, I am your father." And somebody said, no, he doesn't say that anymore. Now he says, "No, I am your father."
Well, do you know what? Yeah.
So I went and looked. Sure enough, he says, "No, I am your father." I'm thinking, okay, well, you could easily overdub that for something that's online. But there are people who literally have the video, the CD or the video of the original movie in their home collection who have listened to it and it's changed. So
well, maybe that's changed, but Snow White came out and the Seven Dwarfs, that came out in the early 60s. There was no videos about them. So when they actually put these things on VHS and whatever, people
did buy original, when it first came out, no, but during one of the anniversaries of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs or whatever, they did release a videotape to the public, you bought for your home collection when VCRs first came out.
Yeah, well, which would have been in the 70s.
Or even
so
data tapes. That's even older.
Is it not possible that this was all part of the plan, and in the 70s, when they made these videos available to the public to watching on their television, that they actually changed some of the words?
Well, I don't know. Here was another interesting thing about the video, the couple of videos that I watched. One had a young girl or younger girl who had her phone out, and she was having, texting and video conferencing with different friends who she would call them and say, what is it, Sex in the City or Sex and the City? Okay. And they'd say, oh, it's in. And then older people are like, no, it's and. Same thing with the Interview with the Vampire. Same thing with, some of the other things like Fruit Loops were spelled one way and then the other. Jif used to be Jiffy peanut butter. Now it's Jif peanut butter. Well, things like that, the company can decide over time to change the name. And if they do it slowly, you wouldn't notice it. You used to go to the store and you used to buy Jiffy, and now you buy Jif. But it would be the same thing as, oh, I wish I were an Oscar Mayer Ween, or, kind of ditty jingle that you sang when you were a kid. You memorized stuff like that. And if they suddenly changed it, then you would go, wait a minute. Okay, so that something's going on, okay, whether it's manipulated or whether there was an actual time shift. And some people believe that there was a reset of some kind or a shift of some kind, and people from another dimension, parallel dimension of Earth, shifted into ours, and some of us shifted into another one, or I'm not really sure what they expect. And they do bring up that it was, related in time, related to when CERN started acting up. And so the Caladron, Large Collider, whatever you call that thing, Hadron Collider. And so I don't know. I can't stop thinking about it. So it is a distraction.
So you personally, you think that around with the timeline?
Listen, you know how open-minded I am. Okay. It wouldn't surprise me at all if it were possible to shift some small things in the timeline and at some point utilize that shift of memory to confuse people as to what do I really remember? Let's see, let me give you an example. Okay. They could suddenly move a continent and say it's always been here, move a continent on the globe or on any of the maps and say, no, it's always been over here. I've talked to people who say, no, I remember there being more space between the boot of Italy and Sicily. Okay. And I don't remember Japan being right off so close to the coast of North and South Korea and things like that. Okay. So I've heard people say, I remember the map, the United States West Coast went straight down to the coast of the west coast of South America, almost straight down. And you look at one now and it's like, woo, it's way over here angled, okay, on the globe. So I don't know, but what if suddenly they said, aliens start showing up walking down the street and people that didn't look like us, okay, whether they were reptiles or just had, giants, or they just had funny face features or something. And they announce, well, these people have always been here. You're just not remembering it right. And maybe half the population goes, no, then I would remember if I saw one of those before. Well, maybe you just never saw one before, but they've always been here. You see what I'm saying? There's a way to manipulate what you believe you remember. And then what that would cause would be, I'm going to call up my friend and I'm going to say, Lawrence, do you remember these alien people? And you'd say, sure, I do. I remember them. Just like you remember Interview with the Vampire and I remember Interview with a Vampire. Okay. And we're damn sure that we remember what we remember. So there is a use for this.
Yeah.
For this distraction to be implemented at some future point in time.
It sounds like they want people to be, feel unsure of what they know. But what the question I would ask about this Mandela effect, who was it who first coined the phrase? Because there in line may lay the answer. What is the source of? It's the same as all these flat Earth maps and flat Earth clocks and things that appear in movies. Person to bring, we know who does this with flat Earth. Who is the first who shall remain nameless? I'll say the letters RV. These people are the first people to bring it to our attention, and I'm pretty sure they're not spending all day going through, frame by frame.
Listen, these are methods. These are methods of counterintelligence agents. Okay. There are such things as counterintelligence agents. They've been around since way before the Cold War. As a matter of fact, they've always been around in one form or another for as long as mankind has been trying to manipulate one another. So if you have counterintelligence agents who are, their script, their plot is to introduce some information that is false, in with 90% truth and 10% a lie, let's say, or even 99% truth with one little change in there. And let's say, for example, that this counterintelligence intelligent agency created this online forum for people to discuss this timeline shift thing. And for lack of another word, let's say it started out by one person saying, I don't know whether I'm remembering right or not, but I remember Nelson Mandela died while he was in prison in the 80s. And then suddenly he gets out of prison and he's, the president of South Africa. And then someone goes, yeah, I kind of remember that. And that's a little bit of kind of groupthink, okay, or could be considered groupthink. And some people would call it mass hysteria. But regardless, if you've got more people who collaborate on something and then they agree on something and then some more people come in and then some more people come in, that's kind of how the flat Earth got kicked off in this last go around. Current one. And because otherwise, if nobody ever talked about it, then nobody would have talked about it, and then it wouldn't have gotten sort of gone viral on Facebook and so on and so forth. Okay, so Mandela effect is doing the same thing. It's going viral on Facebook and on YouTube. I bet you 6 months ago you probably would have found maybe a few dozen videos on Mandela effect. Now people are doing full out documentaries on it, okay? And they're combing through every kind of thing. Just like that Sarah Lee one. See, I had to sing the little ditty in my head so that I could remember what I remembered, okay? Because songs are like that. Once you remember some lyrics, for example, to a song, then you probably will never forget them, right?
It's funny that you should mention, Laurie, earlier about moving places on the map, because it brought something to mind which actually covered maps. So I'm just going to put this little clip on now. It's only a minute. I don't know whether it'll play or not, but we can try. Let's have a look. Okay, I've got that on. Don't want that. Let's see if I can get this. Do you remember this? Has that come up?
Recent research showed.
You got it? Is it on? Yeah.
Fifth of Americans
Yes.
count the U.S. on a world map. Why do you think this is? I personally believe that U.S. Americans are unable to do so because some people out there in our nation don't have maps, and I believe that our education, like such as South Africa and Iraq, everywhere like such as, and I believe that they should, our education over here in the U.S. should help the U.S. or should help South Africa. It should help the Iraq and the Asian countries, so we will be able to build up our future.
Thank you very much, South Carolina.
Wow, Lawrence, that was painful.
Well, I mean, the funny thing about
wow, that was painful. I can't even tell you.
hey, I mean, there are some flat earthers that are a bit like her. You must have seen one or
Stop
two.
Screen sharing. I'm looking at myself double on the screen share.
Yeah.
I told you last week that I did that research on, average IQ in the United States is 98. So that might have been a little lower than average right there.
We can't locate the United States.
But it also is one of those situations where if you don't have an answer and you don't know the answer, please don't make one up, because that's really embarrassing.
Yeah, I know. I'll tell you an interesting sideline to that particular story, because when that first came out, I was going around doing presentations on water quality, what's in the tap water, etc., and fluoride. And I looked up South Carolina to check what the levels of fluoride in the water are. It's actually naturally fluoridated there, and it's the highest in America. It's something like 4 parts per million, and they're only legally allowed to put, I think it's 1 part per million in the water. So South Carolina would be an area where people are getting more fluoride than is advisable. Well, none's advisable, but I think the figure's something between 3 and 4 parts per million. So that's a bit of a spin-off on that.
Well, they're obvious. Okay, back to chemtrails just for a minute. Okay.
Sure.
They're obviously pumping something out of the back of planes that was not there before. Okay. Whether or not they changed fuels, whether or not they decided to run a fear psyop, whether or not they're actually doing it for another purpose, which would be to obscure sunlight or to obscure being able to see stars, planets, whatever, at night with telescopes clearly. I mean, they don't do it every day. So just because you can't see it tonight, you could have cloud cover one night and then tomorrow night can be totally clear. So unless they were hiding something particular up in the sky, some people say UFOs, some people, it's just all kinds of speculation. And one of the things I really don't like to do is speculate, unless I just say I'm speculating, and which I've been known to do. But with regards to chemtrails, some of the other things that I try to notice is, okay, what is the plant life doing? Okay, are the trees losing leaves? Is the grass drying up? Are plants stunted? Because I'm quite a gardener myself. I like to work out in the yard and I like to plant and grow things, always have. So yeah, I notice things like that. And I haven't noticed any great differences. Although I have noticed things like weather control, weather patterns changing with regards to chemtrails, being in the sky yesterday and today it rains. So are they cloud seeding? I don't know. But I've gotten to the point, and one of the things that is a lot of people have gotten to the point about is, I've gotten to the point where I can't fret about it anymore, because I don't know where they're coming from. I don't know where they're taking off and landing. So I can't go there and cuss them out and say, what the hell are you guys spraying out the back of this plane? So, I feel a little bit out of control but no more so than auditing the Federal Reserve, for example, or making sure that we have fair and precisely counted elections in this country. So all of these things are in the same ballpark with in my view. It's part of it is to make you feel pretty freaking helpless.
Yeah, the only other, I mean, I covered that in my last presentation as a purpose for chemtrails is, I mean, I think it's in the book of Revelations, and it you know, the first major disaster was the Great Flood. And in Revelations, I think it talks about ice coming down, huge chunks of ice weighing something like 80 or 90 pounds. I think it's called a talent, which would be ice that would be lining the firmament or coming from up somewhere up there, raining down on us, which would, you know, if you assume that all these underground bases are some kind of sanctuary, if you know, if they know when this is going to happen, maybe they are using these trails to you know, delay the ice coming down in some shape or form. But as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing harmful coming down that is going to hurt us if we ingest it. When these things first came out, and I was researching it, and it was a heavily sprayed day, or you know, there was lots of lines in the sky, I'd be reluctant to go out because I didn't want to breathe the air in. And lots of people they say, "I've got chem cough." You know, if they had a cough, well, it had to be the chemtrails. You know, and all these illnesses like Morgellons and stuff like that. I'm not so sure that there's any connection with what you're seeing in the sky. That guy who first came out, Clifford Carnicon, he was the first guy who did any lengthy documentaries out. He had this woman on his show, I think her name was Gwen Scott or something like that. She used to be a journalist with CNN, and she researched alternative health. And she came up with this thing called a red wine test to see whether you had Morgellons in the body. And basically, you just swill red wine around your mouth for about 2 or 3 minutes and spit it into a white bowl, and you will see all this gunge, you know, that looks like it's some kind of, you know, alien life in the what's it.
Wait. What is your word? Gunge?
Have you never done the red wine test?
No, I know that. I'm talking about the specific word you just used. Gunge?
Well,
it's an English term. Apparently, it's a UK term, and I've never heard it before. So I'm asking because I don't know what that means.
It's like slimy, lumpy stuff. You know?
Okay. All right, I got you.
If you've got some Merlot wine,
my word for that is Mophus. So okay.
You've got some red wine now, and squished it around your mouth, and spit it into a bowl.
Right, I have seen that. I've seen that.
Well, I used to go and do it for the whole audience, and we'd have 100 people doing it, and everybody would have this coming out. Yeah, because you got Morgellons. Because
and did every single person have gunge?
Everybody, yeah. Some had more than others, but you know, some people have got these huge, great big lumps. You know.
Boy, that's disgusting.
People say they were crawling out of the jars; they were observing it. You know, there was loads of videos about this stuff on YouTube, and you know.
Okay, so what do you do? What do you do? I mean, you know, I've seen people with Morgellons. I've seen the disease. I've seen the videos where people have little wires and threads and blue and red threads growing out of their skin, and they get lesions and all kinds of horrible, you know, infections.
How do we know they're not actors?
I have no idea. See, that's part of a psyop that you can't know unless you. Now, I do have friends on Facebook and otherwise that two or three friends on Facebook who literally got Morgellons and did all kinds of ridding the body of foreign material kind of exercises with diet and drinking slop and so on, and clearing it up. So I'm not going to make fun of that. Okay, I'm not going to belittle that at all. but I'm not going to agree that A and B are directly linked, meaning that planes flying, because why didn't I get it? Or why? And then someone said, no, well, maybe only people with Rh negative blood get it. Well, then no. Then you ask them, you got Rh negative blood? No, I don't. Okay, well, let's discount that one. So, but the thing is people don't question. I mean, when you say the words question everything, it means everything. Even the things that friends and family tell you, because people can make shit up in their own mind, or they can start to believe something and it literally will manifest. I mean, truly, people can make themselves physically sick by thinking about it, just like you can make yourself well by thinking about it.
Yeah. And when they asked that woman who came up with this red wine test, they said, where did you get this test from? And she said it came to her in a dream. So,
right.
I reckon Clifford Carnicum is part of the psyop on this, because if you've ever watched that movie, that was so professionally put together. The music was fantastic. If you've never seen it, I mean, some people.
Yeah, I have.
Aerosol Crimes. You watch that movie; it's compulsive viewing. It's very well put together, and I think it's part of
the same, Lawrence, in my opinion, and this is where I've started drawing the line, and I'm encouraging other people to do the same, okay? This is where the idea for Free and Awake came from. I just started up a whole nother concept called freeandawake.net, and it has a website, and it has a Facebook group, and it has a Facebook page, community page, freeandawake.net. The idea is the only way you're ever going to actually be free anymore is you have to be free in your mind. If your mind is free, you are free, okay? They can put you in prison. They can put you in jail. They can put you in chains. They can put you in a freaking FEMA camp. But if your mind is free, you are free, okay? Because your body, your meat suit, is just how they control you. They cannot control your mind unless you fall prey to mind control. And I used to fall prey to mind control. I mean, even to this day, I believe there is certain things as gang stalking and mind control experts who have the capacity to beam thoughts into your head. And I've laid awake at night, the same looping thought going over and over and over again, to where I'm like, I don't even think this way. This isn't even the way my mind works. My mind is like total free association. It is on 100-mile-an-hour track all the time. Boom, 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 boom. This makes me think of that, and that makes me think of this, and that leads me. And you could ask me in 5 seconds what I thought about 5 seconds ago. I wouldn't be able to tell you, because I've already zoomed down the road. Okay. So I literally have laid awake at night thinking about flat earth things. And I get up the next day and I post something about it, because it came to me while I was laying there trying to sleep, or because I don't remember dreams. I'm one of those few people who never remembers a dream, hardly ever. I mean, it has to be really horrific for me to remember it. And I mean horrific, like scary, okay? But good dreams, stuff like that, I don't even remember. So if you're free in your mind and you just like say, listen, I got to get off that. I can't be in this freaked out place anymore. And it's not about, going back in the matrix or just not caring anymore. You can care. You still got to care, and you still got to research. You still got to understand and know about it. But you can't stay in that place of constant agitation based on fear, because they own you then. I mean, they control you, period.
Yeah, and and one of the things that so many, awake people are looking at now is that there's great fascination as to what happens when this life that we have now comes to an end, and where we go, and are we recycled? Are our souls brought back? Do we choose our new parents? Are we here just because we've chose to come here and learn a lesson and experience something really horrible or very, really pleasant, and then go back and report back to base at source, as they call it, and then decide to come back again as somebody else? They see when they pass away that it's an exciting time, because they know they really think there's something out. Well, I do as well. There is something else that we go to. Maybe it's in another dimension where we're a less dense area. But that seems to be a common thread with truthers as to this enlightenment, that there is more to life than just, you've got this one life, that's it, make the most of it. That's what people always used to say. You've only got one life, so live it and enjoy yourself. Well, you should do that anyway. But where are you coming from that? What are you expecting to happen?
Well, I have a very different idea about what life is anymore. And it comes from a long time of thinking about it and sort of ruling out things. And one of the places where I'm pretty comfortable at now is believing that pretty much everything is a bioelectric world, or creation. And what I mean by bioelectric, obviously we are biological. Everything here is biological. There really are plants, there really are trees, there really are dogs and cats and people. And we really do build stuff like buildings and churches. And, it is concrete to the degree that we see it, feel it. Like if a church falls on you, you're going to be crushed. You're going to feel that, at least for a second. And so with regards to, is this world biological, that I do believe and understand that. But at the same time, I do believe that everything is electrical energy connected in this universe. And so I do believe I'm connected to every plant, every animal, every building, everything, not building, but everything that is biological. And I also have gone so far as to have an idea of that's perhaps how prayer even works, where people spontaneously heal themselves or heal other people of diseases and impairments and things like that through the power of prayer, that a prayer is an electrical connection between you and the source, you and God, whichever you call it. So most people probably never thought about prayer that way if they are a Christian or a religious person. They believe God answers prayers based on some formula that they don't really understand. And then several years ago, that whole secret, the power of attraction theory came out, and people would wish for something or draw something to themselves, and it would manifest, the important word being manifest. And so if you take that word manifest and you apply it to what I just described before, and that is if we are all electrically connected, then, I've watched people heal somebody. I have healed myself before. I've actually even healed cavities in my teeth, which most people would think that that's pretty crazy. But I've had injuries before that I have healed faster than they would have healed, and I believe that it is a direct connection, that I'm asking for something, and I actually thank Creator God for this, what I'm asking for, as I'm asking for it, and then I say thank you for for healing my finger, where I just, practically tore it off in a drill. And then I forget about it, and then it heals, and I'm suddenly one day I'm okay, and I don't get to choose the time or the day or when it's going to manifest. So do I think I'm coming back here? Do I think I've been here before? That's another hard question, because think of it this way. There are lots of people who believe that they have former life memories. Other people believe that they have collective conscious memories, meaning memories are passed down through your DNA even. Some people believe that. I'm not going to argue that. I have no reason to believe that might not be possible. DNA is our own biological electrical connection that makes up everything about us. So, I've watched a couple of those videos of the guy who talks about, when you die and that bright light happens, don't go there, because that's the recycling facility. And that means you're coming back here, and you don't want to do that.
So where'd you go then? You don't follow. Where'd you go? Do you just stay in the shadows for the rest of time, or where'd you go?
I don't know, because I do believe that we are eternal beings, because I don't believe there's ever a beginning or an end. I think everything that is has always been, and that I do believe creation, as far as our Earth and universe. I do believe that it was created. I believed it before, but I believe it even more so once I discovered that the Earth is flat, and that there's just all this fascinating stuff going on above and around and everything else, and that we're not flying through space in, with the greatest of ease, spinning and vortexing and all that stuff. So that there have been more things that have sort of manifested in my belief system since I became a believer in the flat Earth, or at least a non-believer in the globe. So because now I question how flat is the Earth, and I don't mean to relate to is it convex or concave or any of that, but since we've gone through this whole map exercise, I, like a lot of other people, was willing to buy into the AE map and the little circling sun and moon model of stuff and stars, and until I just questioned, and wait a minute, it's really not that simple. It's really doesn't work that way. So, we've talked endlessly about free energies models. There's parts of it that ding, ding, dings in my head the minute I see it, and I go, score, good job on figuring that one out, or at least figuring out something that also works as well as this other explanation. And so now I have multiple explanations in my head moving around, like mixing low on the blender machine and coalescing as we speak. And at some point I will have a better understanding of what I think I live, where I think I live, and how it works. But as far as this realm we live in, I do think our spirit, our electrical energy spirit, leaves this meat suit 3-dimensional realm when we die and goes someplace else. Where, is up for grabs. I don't believe it physically goes to heaven or hell at the immediate time, but it's possible that it does. I don't know.
Yeah, and another common theme with people who've got into flat Earth is that there's quite a few who've become, they say they found God or Jesus, and they see there's a purpose in life and things like that. But that wasn't the case for me, because I realized that there was some divine force out there that was providing me with information. And where this comes from, they say there's these Akashic records where all your thoughts, everybody's thoughts that ever were, are sort of stored somewhere. And when you become spiritually more aware, which I believe you can do by cleaning up your body and becoming, vegetarian or vegan or whatever, once you start purifying the body, then you can think a lot clearer, and the channels open up so that you can actually access this information. Sometimes it will. And what happened with me was, I used to be a broker and had a successful business in real estate and financial services, and all that went belly up probably 7 or 8 years ago now. And it just hit me one day that I was going to be a healer of some sort. I was going to help people with their health, but using natural remedies. And the first thing that I helped heal was my dog. And I'm just going to show some people some little pictures now of my dog and showing how I cured my dog of cancer. So I'm just going to bring this up and share the screen if I can. Let's have a look. Share. Here we go. So I'm going to go to my Facebook page. So that's, sorry, where's that going? This is my dog. That's my dog there. Let's bring it up. Sorry, where's it gone? There we go. There's my dog. That's Tigger. And he died just before Christmas, which was quite a low time for me because he was a beautiful natured dog. He was an Irish setter, but he was a couple of weeks short of his 13th birthday. But a few years prior to that, he had cancer in his foot. So I'll just go and show you, because I decided at the time I'd actually made this product called Black Salve. I'd heard about it and decided that I was going to make some for myself in case I ever needed it. And I went to the vets, and the vet told me it was a cancerous tumour. And I said, no, thanks. I'll deal with it myself. I just knew I could sort it out. So here's the series of photographs. If you can see them there. Can you see that one?
Yes. That's
the tumour on the side of his foot. So the vet was going to amputate that part of his foot, took part of his paw. So I put the salve on, and so you can see there, that was after a couple of hours. It started to eat away into the tumour. And this is a progression over the next few days. So it's looking a bit of a mess there, and a bit more of a mess. And that's when the tumour's starting to come out, and you can see some clean, healthy tissue. And this is the healing process. Better. Healing up. And that was like 4 weeks after his foot had healed up perfectly, and he didn't have any surgery. So that was a journey with Black Salve. And let me go back into that. Have I stopped sharing now?
Yes.
Yeah. So Black Salve is a remarkable substance which can pull tumours that are close to the surface out of the body. It's outlawed in some countries because it doesn't cost very much to make, but it does work. And for skin cancers, anything near the surface, these can be removed from it. Sometimes it's a few days, sometimes it takes several weeks. And the way it works is that if you can imagine when the body has cancer, if you compare it to a computer where there's some corrupted files, the computer isolates these files so they can't do any further damage. And what the body does with cancer, it surrounds it with a membrane which is many times thicker than the regular cells. The downside is the body's immune system can't get at it. So when you apply the salve to the body, it breaks down the outer coating of the tumour, which enables the body's killer white blood cells to get in and start to destroy the tumour. And that's what happens. And over a period of time, the tumour gets killed off, and then the healthy tissue, the unhealthy tissue starts separating away from the healthy tissue, and you get a crater and a hole where the tumour used to be, and then the body fills it in with healthy tissue. But then I've had things like, somebody had a headache. What was the remedy going to be? Because people would ask me, and first thought that came into my head, a teaspoonful of cayenne paper in hot water. And I told this individual, this is what's come into my head. I've actually gone and checked it on Google, and apparently it is a good remedy. And they tried it, and this blinding headache that it had for several hours, it had gone within half an hour simply by taking some cayenne pepper. So where do these thoughts come from? Do they originate inside our head, or are we just tuning into some external force, and like the head's the receiver? In the same way that, all the information you get on your computer doesn't originate from there. It just shows up there as a receiving channel.
Well, I believe that it's B. And number one, kudos for healing your dog. That was pretty cool. But I do believe that the head, the brain, and the heart, obviously they're both electrical, and they cannot survive without this electrical signal going between the two, and which is why they're able to keep people alive on life support by little shocks to the heart or reading the brain signals. And they'll say, oh, this person's brain dead or whatever, and then somebody will say, no, they hear you, or they react to something, so on. So many times over my life, I have had to discern which signal that I'm getting when I'm trying to make a decision about something, or understand something, or whatever. Which signal that I'm getting is the more powerful, or the one that I should listen to, the head signal or the heart signal. And it depends on each individual situation. But I do know people who say, I believe something with my whole heart. And when they say that, I understand what they mean, because believing something with your heart is different than believing something with your head, because our brain is like a computer. I don't think that it has feeling, emotion to dictate what you're supposed to know or think or whatever. And I know some people that are literally psychopathic, and they don't have emotion. They don't have heart. Their heart connection, it doesn't work so well. They're very smart. They can figure things out. They can manipulate the hell out of people. They can play all kinds of mind games on you, but their heart's not in it, I guess you would call it. So I do believe that our connection to God, creator, source, whatever you call it, is real, and it is a connection between, some people go into all the chakras and all that kind of stuff, which, is fine. I'm not into that, but I do believe that I've had people ask me questions, and I did not know this information, or did not know this material, and just through the brain and out the mouth, it just came. And I answered a question, and I'm like, I didn't even know I knew that, and surprised myself.
Yeah.
So
I haven't got a video to show you, but I remember watching some video, probably last year, I think it was, where people had heart transplants, and after the surgery, they ended up getting the personality of the person they received the heart from, and they found they had gifts that they didn't previously had. So they found that they could play the piano. They never played it before in their life, and this ability to do these things just came out of nowhere. And they didn't like certain foods before, and then they did. It was like, it's almost as though the consciousness lies in the heart and not in the head.
Part of it does, I do believe. I strongly believe that we are not just our brain or our heart. I mean, some people use the word gut. I do things based on my gut. I think there's a little bit of being able to use that word, that there are signals in your guts that do your stomach and other places in your body that are just as connected or partially connected. And, think about it. Your body is a machine. You can do without a whole lot of the parts in your body. But, I know a lot of people who, tying this back to flat earth, I know a lot of people who, since they've become flat earthers, they feel a higher consciousness, or they feel more connected to life, the universe, and everything, or they feel more free or more calm, more relaxed, not as fearful. I mean, I've heard all of these different comparisons, and I wouldn't poo-poo any of them. I believe that, because I've experienced some of it myself, even though along with that, I've also experienced a lot of animosity and hatred and anger and angst coming from people when you bring up something about flat earth or question their belief system. And it's just like, their energy field is connected totally different than yours is. And you would be better off if you just led by example and don't have conversations with people that are that obviously off kilter with you, because nothing good can come of it. I don't think. I've never found that to be true yet. So with regards to this awakening part, though, one thing I can be certain of, and that I try very hard not to fall into this trap, and that is people who have become flat earthers or have started doing extensive research into all of these areas that they had not before. Please do not become arrogant and holier than thou about this understanding and knowledge that you have, because it's just different knowledge. It doesn't make you better. It doesn't make you smarter. It doesn't make you wiser, more worthy, more important, any of those things. It just makes you different. And that is sort of a big responsibility to show by your actions that your so-called higher consciousness is not belittling to other people. And because I've been called, sarcastic or smart aleck or whatever before, for saying, you don't know this material, and they get angry. Of course I don't know it because it's stupid or it's crazy or it's, flat earth crap. So just that.
So what's your take? Because that's something that's come out quite a lot since flat earth hit the scene. People talking about fallen angels, and all the royal families and high-level politicians are all descendants of these fallen angels, and they're preserving the bloodlines by making sure that they have children with the right families. And these people are all psychopaths, because these people can start wars where millions of people die, and they can impoverish an entire nation and steal all its natural resources. What's your take on that? And do you think that all these high-level politicians are from the same bloodline, and they are descendants of fallen angels?
I do believe that there definitely were what people call fallen angels. Okay. Now, if you are not a biblical student, and if you are not somebody who, agrees that there are angels and demons and other worldly creatures, then this probably isn't for you. But if you do believe that at the point of creation, there were other creatures that already existed, and if you do believe that there are other realms, densities, not universes necessarily, but other places that we can't go to, whether that's fourth dimension and we're 3 or whatever, these entities fell and we use the word fell because they came from above or outside of here. They didn't come up out of the ground, so they didn't rise. They fell, okay? So they didn't, according to scripture, and according to, if you understand that there were giants that lived on earth, then this came about from Nephilim, or from fallen angels mating with human women and creating hybrids that grew to be giants. Did they grow to be giants from the womb and came out as giants? I think it's possible that they came out larger than normal human babies. I do believe that maybe women died birthing them and they were extracted. There's all kinds of studies on this, and everybody has their own opinion. So is there a bloodline of these Nephilim? Well, according to everything that I've researched, and even scripture says, there were giants in the days of Noah and after, meaning there were Nephilim. Nephilim were the giants. There are bones found around the world of giants. People poo-poo it and laugh and everything because they go, oh yeah, those are all photoshopped. Quite a few of these photographs are photoshopped. If I wanted to hide giants in plain sight and be able to collect their bones and store them away somewhere, I would Photoshop fake giant pictures with giant skulls. I mean, some of these skulls are supposed to be 4 feet across. I mean, we're talking about 20 feet tall people, okay? They're 3 times a normal human. 3 times 6 is 18 feet, okay? So they were able to pick up something like a lion under their arm, like a cat, like a house cat you would pick up and put under your arm, okay? So there are depictions of these giants throughout history, in carvings and so on, and tablets, and they're all over the world. So they wouldn't have made them up. What reason would they've had to make them up and draw pictures of them? I mean, we've got too many giant buildings and structures to be able to go, well, maybe those giants built those giant things. So not only were they supposedly giant, but they also had abilities that we don't have. They were much more intelligent, had a very much higher ability to manipulate things on Earth. Levitation was one of them. And, if you're 18 feet tall or 20 feet tall, you would probably be able to move a very large rock. So is it possible that there are still giants on Earth? Absolutely. If there were giants ever, there certainly is a possibility that there are giants now. Have they been bred down again? Meaning, is this bloodline been diffused back down, mutated back down to be normal size humans? There's been times throughout history where there are larger than normal people and then average size people. So, yeah, I believe there were giants. I believe there's a possibility that there are some giants still today. Last week, I talked about the video that I watched about the creatures, reptile giants, whatever, that live under earth in these tunnels and are being fed live humans because they need that energy or want it or whatever. Maybe there's a treaty between large governments, the UN, or these elites, whatever you want to call them, the Bilderberg, Rothschild, whatever, Illuminatis. Maybe that's some treaty that is superseding. People say, oh, flat earth is the biggest lie that's ever been uncovered, or the biggest lie conspiracy in history. Well, I'm going to tell you what, if some big giant sons of bitches come crawling up out of some of these holes and boom, 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 walking around on Earth, I guarantee you that's going to be a little bit bigger than flat Earth. So, there's things we don't know about, and there are secrets being kept, and we all know it. Everybody knows it, whether they agree with it and will say it vocally or not, like I am willing to. Everybody out there has secretly read books or watched alien movies or whatever, and they believe there's something we don't know about. Is flat Earth huge? Yeah, I think it's pretty huge, and I do think it's real, and I do think it's something that's going to come out, and I actually think that it's a possibility that they're test marketing some of the smaller, now imagine this, some of the smaller truths they could let out to continue to be able to cover up the ones that they don't want out. And if you don't ever want people to know that they've been feeding humans for thousands of years underground or over in the ice somewhere. Another thing I heard is their body temperature runs an average of 140 degrees. So if you're 140 degrees, you could easily be living in the Arctic or the Antarctic, and no one would ever go there and see you. Maybe that's what they're hiding. I don't know. But my point is if in fact flat Earth is purposefully being released and manipulated as to what flat earthers are supposed to believe, meaning let's make them believe biblical stuff, okay? The biblical account, so that, which is the circle and the firmament and all that stuff, okay? Then we can keep this other one hidden for another 50 or 100 years.
Yeah. So, I was talking about these deep underground bases before, which allegedly are all over the United States and apparently in the UK and other countries. What do you see as the purpose of these bases? Why would anybody choose to live underground? Why do you think they're building them, if you believe that they actually exist?
Well, they do exist. There are films that they exist. People have, whistleblown, I guess you would call it, some secret videos that have been captured underground. So we know that these bases, we don't even know what they're for. We don't know that they're military bases, but in this world, everything that is kept secret via the military of some sort, whatever country it's being done with, whether it's Russia or China or whatever. So the only way to keep a secret is to be able to do it through orders of a military type scenario or setup. So yeah, I do believe that there are underground bunkers, tunnels, roads, storage. I do believe people live under there full time, just like they live on the space station, viral, for a year or two. I believe that people live underground and could do so easily, and actually probably volunteer to do it. But I also know that throughout history, mankind has tunneled underground. There are many places across Earth where maybe it started out as a natural cave or something, but there are villages and living quarters underground that people chose to go under there. Why? I don't know. Was there some bad topside thing going on, like a drought or a plague or whatever? I don't know. But I mean, they've been found, ancient ones, like several thousand years ago. That's pretty ancient.
So why do you think they've built these bases then? What is the purpose?
The only reason I could think of would be for secrecy. So whatever secrecy they were cover up, secrecy, hiding, whatever they were trying to hide. That's why they built them. They either built them to hide away something, like the movie with the crazy morphed out head kid hiding in the basement. Then throw raw meat to him now and then, or I don't know if you have movies like that. Okay, but I'm sure you probably have a few.
They're supposed to have these.
So yeah, to me, there would be no other reason than secrecy, because even the demons, even the fallen angels know they cannot hide from God. They cannot hide from the Creator. If you can create this, then there is no place in it you don't own and you don't control. So, that being said, there's plenty of people who would say, well, if that's the case, then what kind of God is this that lets, demons and bad things run amok, on earth? Well, if you haven't ever gotten that far in your own spiritual questioning and education, let me just say this: there can be nothing good without evil. They coexist, and they always have, because there is no such thing as utopia. And if you did live in utopia, trust me, you'd be bored stiff. And if God created mankind, life, the universe, and everything to just serve him or it or she, and for those of you listening, I have to do she. So if you created all of this and you did not create it to choose to love and adore and serve you, then what good is it? I mean, it has to be by choice. It can't be by demand. That would suck. That would be boring too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, does that sound crazy?
Yeah,
if I was going to create an earth and a realm, I would make it to where, I would give these creatures, this, creation, a reason to think that I was benevolent and that I loved them and that I created them because I loved them. Otherwise, you're a psychopath. You would not create all this. If you were a psychopath, then you would create everything to just break its necks and destroy it and burn it and do all these horrible things to it and never give it an opportunity to ever see anything good.
Yeah. Well, there was that movie called The Time Machine, wasn't there? Where the guy goes back in time or whatever, or forward in time, and there was a race of horrible people that lived beneath the surface that...
what were those, like the Morlocks or something?
They were doing what you were saying, and they were eating the humans, and they were gathering them up, and they were... on the surface, it was all like paradise, and everybody
right.
going like it was on a desert island with everybody having lots of nice food and happy times. And then every so often they were herded into a cave, and that was the last you saw of them.
Right. Well, I mean, there's depictions of that all over mankind's art from as far back in history as you can go. I mean, there's pictures and depictions of giant dragons eating people, and sacrifices on the altar with blood sacrifices to maybe it's a sheep or a lamb or a calf, or maybe it's your firstborn daughter or whatever. But I mean, they actually did that stuff. That's for real. That's not made up. I mean, they didn't make that up and draw pictures of it. So it's coming from something, or it's sort of a spoiler alert for what's really going on. Maybe they used to do all of that stuff topside, and at some point when maybe this treaty was made, they took it all underground and said, well, let's kind of do like the Time Machine movie. Let's let everybody that's up top think that everything life is, life's like the box of chocolates. But underground, we'll make sure that, if you guys just stay down here or in Antarctica or wherever, I mean, I've brought that movie up multiple times about the Transformers with the Decepticons that are held in the Arctic, and they're giants, of course, but they're machines. And, you know, there's plenty of ways to tell you the truth without actually just coming right out and telling you. And for those who are smart enough to figure it out, then, okay, you did. But what are you going to do about it? I mean, are you and I, Lawrence, going to mount an expedition to go try to break into one of these underground bunkers and see if we can find the people eating giants? I don't think so.
No, I very much doubt it. Yeah, but they're spending huge budgets on this stuff, and you know, it must be something quite serious as to why they're doing it. You know,
well, think about it. I mean, you know, like I said before, if you were the elites of the world and you were the ones with the secret and you were tasked to make the decision year after year, decade after decade, to either let mankind know that this is going down or to keep it secret, and these beings give you all kinds of bonus points for your life, money, wealth, technology, thoughts beamed into your head. Buy more Microsoft tomorrow because it's going to go up. You know, I don't know, but think about that there is a quid pro quo kind of thing going on. You give me this, we'll give you that, and everybody stays pretty happy. But you know, that also makes me think of different presidents along the way, if there is such a thing or has always been such a thing going on. You know, there's a lot more to the fact that they age 20 years for the age that they're in there than what meets the eye. It's like, yeah, I know we've had a war, but for crying out loud, for as long as I can remember, we've been warring with somebody. In my whole lifetime, I remember very few years where there wasn't a war. So that's just sort of average everyday, you know, occurrence. So that can't be such a big headache because it's not just the president dealing with that. They got scads of people doing all these things. But, you know, look at like NASA is this perfect example. You know, we don't really talk about NASA very often because most everybody else does. But for example, look at the annual budget of NASA and look at the privatized budgets of that are going into these other agencies that are under NASA, but maybe not in their budget. Plus, you've got DARPA, and I'm sure you've got your own agencies over there that are quasi-governmental subcontracting agencies of your military. And you know, here's another thing. Look at here's another example. Throughout history, the power structure has moved from one empire to the next, right? I mean, you can look back to the Mongols and the, you know, the Vikings and the Romans and British, crying out loud. I mean, they practically owned the whole world there for a while, long while. And now, of course, it's in the hands of the United States. And pretty soon, you know, this new world order thing is going to kick in, and it's going to be the one world government. All that is going to be, but they say, of course, you know, the U.S. Will probably be the military division of the New World Order. Oh, yay. And so people keep asking, you know, how could you cover up something like flat Earth through all these years and all these decades? Well, you know, how could you cover up a whole lot of things they cover up? I mean, most of the people don't know. There's a very small percentage in the need to know department, right? I mean, only those at the top of the pay, very, very top of the pay scale, know. And they probably are given enough information, like the reason why we have a secret space program is because aliens. And if we didn't, keep them complacent, they would just wipe us all out anyway, because they have the technology. So just play along and shut up and get your paycheck.
Yeah, there was another interesting development this week in Flat Earth, and you probably saw it yourself. There's a Facebook page about, I think it's called Remaking the AE Map, and there's a YouTuber called Dr. Zach, and he's been doing all these calculations, assuming that the Earth was a circle, and he's now concluded that the sun is not going round in circles anymore, but it's going in a straight line. So that was quite interesting, but surprisingly, none of the other big name flat earthers have picked up on this at all. They picked up it big time when he first came out with his special software for mapping out the sun, etc. But they haven't picked up on the fact that he's now saying the sun is moving in a straight line. What do you reckon to that?
Well, the minute you start, well, first of all, the minute you get off the AE map, you're already disassociated. Okay, you're over here in the cheap seats, the fringe of flat Earth. Okay, which is where we are. And so when you question the AE map, you can't help but question the AE model, because they go together. They're inextricably tied. So the only way that the circle map works is because the sun and the moon have to be going around in a circle. And we all know that it's, around the Tropic of Cancer, around the equator, Tropic of Capricorn, and back up, and it's doing this circle loop thing. And then
I'll be right back.
You say, oh, sometimes it gets high, sometimes it's down lower, depending on where it is on the, flat Earth map. And so the problem is that when you try to qualify the AE map as an actual flat Earth rendition of the flat Earth, and you start to do the coordinates and do what Lawrence and I have done, go through the exercise of comparing information and data and so on, then you come to the conclusion that wait a minute, this and this doesn't work. But all it takes is the first time that you sit down with time and date, whether you use the map, the model, the data, whatever. People say, you actually use that? It's government supplied data. Listen, you can't fool people. I mean, the sun's either up where you live or it's not. And if that data was radically wrong anywhere, especially between the Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn, okay, which is more than half of the Earth's surface, then you can't, once you start to say, well, how many hours is the sun up here and how many hours is it up there, and try to compare it, then you realize the sun can't go fast enough around the outside of this perimeter, okay? And I don't care who else has data. The data has to match the model, and otherwise you fill the model out, and you have to make the model match the data, right? I mean, isn't that the proper way? Isn't that how you form a hypothesis? You can't form a hypothesis or a theory without data. You can't just, otherwise you're just dreaming shit up, okay? So the fact that once Zach got the fact that the sun isn't modeling the model that they're using for the flat Earth map and model, which I just made, I'm not a big meme maker, but I just made a meme today with what's his name from Pulp Fiction, with the gun that says, say it one more time.
Samuel
L. Jackson. Yeah. I actually made one that's had say the dome in quote, one more time because now they're trying to adjust the size of the dome that has to fit within the size of the map with that. So everything's tied together. Once you throw one of them out the window, you got to throw it all out and start over. And the big names are not so willing to do that because they didn't come up with it in the first place. These people who are using this map and model did not create this map and model. They're repeating it like parrots, like dogma, which is the same freaking method of dogma that we got stuck with the globe Earth. We just repeated it and repeated it until we knew it by heart, and then we know it. So what do you think?
No, I agree, Laurie. Yeah, I think that's what's been happening, and I mean, I just despair when I look on because I go on every day. I look at everything. I look at virtually everything that comes out every day because while I'm working, I just click on videos released in the last hour, and anything that looks remotely worth having a look at, I'll take a look at it. And you know, there's so many of them that are using the false model to put their case across, but they're just repeating what other people have told them. They haven't checked it out for themselves, and that's the problem. But they have the weight of numbers. You know, we're on a sticky wicket. We're on the losing side because just people are not checking things out for themselves. It's the same as...
Look at it this way, Lawrence. What would they have to report if you said, okay, you make all the videos you want, you make all the blogs you want, and talk about it all you want, but you cannot use the following. You cannot use the AE map. You cannot use the AE model. You cannot have the little spinny sun and moon going around in a circle. You cannot have a dome shaped to plop over the top of it, perfectly Truman Show style, and you can't say ice wall.
You can't.
Ice wall. Okay, so go. What do you got? See, what do they got? I mean, there's still plenty, more than enough to talk about, to extrapolate on, to do experiments and research. I mean, when was the last time you heard of a laser test? When was the last time you heard of a balloon test? When was the last time? I mean, now you got people, they're posting videos of the moon and the sun and the stars with filters and so on. And all of those things are fabulous. I mean, absolutely stunning to see some of these star videos. And, Cass Kring, I think, put up the video of the Mercury transiting the sun with filters all on there, and you saw a little Mercury going across, and you're like, okay, well, that sure looks like an orb, and that sure looked okay. Well, nobody said they weren't orbs. Just because those are orbs doesn't mean we're an orb. We could be the pool table, and they could all be the cue balls or the 8-ball or the balls. And so, but the fact remains that there's still plenty of other areas to study and measurements to be taken and comparisons to be done. Has there ever become a council of measurers? I mean, when you think by now, after a whole year, there would be a mathematical measurement council formed of 10 people with an open source website where they just constantly are inputting measurements between here and here and here and distances and so on. That's never even been close to happening. You can't even get more than 4 or 5 people to post a picture of the moon simultaneously across a flat plane.
Well, that's it. Most of the flat Earth shows, they're not talking about the science. They're talking about other people, and they're talking about, you know, how flat Earth's impacted upon them and how they're closer to God or Jesus. There's very, very few actually looking at the science, and those that are, most of those are working on using what you and I know as the false model. But until people are told that the model's wrong and why it's wrong, they're going to continue doing that. So we've done more than anybody to bring that to people's attention.
Well, and we didn't just do it to be buttheads or to be buzzkills. We did it because it needed to be done. Because, I started out, my reasoning was, I don't want to get punked later on when the powers that be, the Decepticons, the Illuminati, whoever, I don't want to, at some point, be laughed at because they show the perfect model of the flat earth, and it isn't that at all. And all of us were walking around believing this something.
Anyway, Laurie, I'm just going to have
like another experiment coming up.
No, yes, it's a short interlude, because I would imagine that the vast majority of the people watching this video, they use the water out of their taps to drink.
Oh boy, this is going to be awful.
It only takes a minute. Anyway, some people drink bottled water from springs, but most people, they think the tap water is fine to drink because it looks clean. Well, I've got 2 glasses of water here. They look reasonably clean, don't they? Yeah. Now, this is one of my little tools. Put that in the camera. This is what's called a dual precipitator. Very hard to get that in the frame. There it is. It's a dual precipitator. Now, what this does, it passes a current of electricity through the water, and it shows up the stuff that's dissolved in it. So before water actually is sent out from the water treatment plants for human consumption, one of the things they do is they add aluminium sulfate to the water to clarify it, to make it look clean. But unfortunately, all of the aluminium is not removed. They do then filter the water through sand afterwards to remove as much aluminium as possible. But what happened in the UK about 20 years ago in Cornwall, that's on the southwest of Britain, they got the dose wrong, and people got overdosed with aluminium sulfate. And what happened in the following years is that people were actually coming down with symptoms of Alzheimer's, senile dementia, in their late 30s and early 40s, and people were getting sick very quickly. So if the powers that be wanted to use chemtrails to make us stupid, they wouldn't use aluminium oxide. They would put aluminium sulfate in the chemtrails. So I'm just going to show you, it'll take about 1 minute. I'm going to show you with my dual precipitator what's actually in your water. So this water looks pretty clean, yeah, and you'll be able to see before your very eyes, yeah, what it's really like. So I'm just going to, this is live electricity, but don't worry, you're not going to have to touch it. So I'm going to turn this on the timer, yeah, and then you can see what happens to the water and how the colour changes. So the lights are on now, and as you can see, it's starting to fizz away. So generally speaking, water is a poor conductor of electricity. Pure rainwater is very poor conductor of electricity, but the more solids there are in it, the more salts and minerals and chemicals are in it, the bigger the conductor of electricity is. But if you run the precipitator around through tap water for a minute, you'll start to see that the tap water is revealing its true colours and what you're actually drinking. Now, people drink several litres of water a day, with cooking and making tea and coffee. And when you go to Starbucks and have a coffee there, there's no fluoride in this water, but in your country, the water's a whole lot more toxic than it is over here. A lot of tap water's got anything up to 500 parts per million dissolved solids, and the water turns a horrible colour. So that's only run for 1 minute. So I'll turn the power off and take this out, and I'll show you looking down on the top. I don't know whether you can see that. Can you see what?
God, Lawrence, that's so disgusting. What is that?
That is what you people are all drinking. There's no trick involved here. I've been doing this demonstration up and down the country to show people what shit is actually in the water. Now, what I'd normally do is get some distilled water or reverse osmosis water, and virtually nothing happens. You just get a slight discoloration because there's some healthy minerals.
Hold the camera still. Hold the camera still over the water.
That is tap water. That is what you people are drinking if you're drinking water out of the tap. Yeah? Absolutely disgusting stuff. Anyway, just thought I'd show you that because...
Gee, thanks, Lawrence.
Lots of people, when I show that to lots of people, that's it. They never touch tap water again. But the beauty of it is once you start using pure water for cooking or making coffee, your coffee tastes better, food tastes better, and you're going to get healthier. So I'm just going to.
Well, that's no doubt. That's no doubt at all, because I've done both. I used to drink tap water, and we at least filter the tap water we use for cooking, just because we don't want to buy gallons and gallons and gallons of water. But the next mission definitely is to get a reverse osmosis machine for the water, because I agree. Not only that, but look at the distances that water travels from the treatment plant to the tap through underground pipes that are, in many cases, really old, like decades and decades old, full of rust and lead and whatever else. So yeah, and they wonder why we're a little bit stupider every year, right?
Well, that's it. I mean, as you get older, your memory tends to fail you. There's some things you can remember instantly, and some things that you think, God, I can't even remember, the PIN number for my cash machine and things like that. I mean,
actually, that happened to me yesterday. I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember my zip code because I rarely ever use it, because I don't send myself mail, and I don't use, I have a P.O. box that I get my mail to, but I had to have my home one, and I couldn't remember it for a minute. So, at the end of the day, Lawrence, the bottom line for me is I'm not going to be here a whole lot longer, and I'm going to choose how at least decent not my lifestyle. I'm not talking about lifestyle. I'm talking about life, attitude, understanding, feeling about how I feel every day when I crawl out of the rack. And I'm not going to let all that negativity and all that fear work on me anymore. And I'm going to keep doing what I want to do, what I choose to do. And I try the best I can to stay out of situations that can get me stuck in their system or caught up in their system. And so that I don't have to deal with all that crap, driving tickets and just all this stuff, so you pay what you absolutely have to pay, and then you try to drop as far under the radar screen as you possibly can on all the other stuff. And do I care and worry about all the badness going on in the world? Absolutely I do. There's no way I could stop caring about it and worrying about it a little bit. But have I become complacent to where, well, I can't do anything about that, so I'm just gonna ignore it and go on about my business? No, I can't actually do that either. But at the same time, I've learned more about why I'm here and what my purpose is, and I decide to do my purpose and not get sucked into what they want my purpose to be. I'm not a robot, and I'm not an automatron, or whatever you want to call it. I am a human. I am going to think like a human, and I'm going to care like a human, and love and have emotions like a human. And that's the best that I can do. That's the best that I'm expected to do, I believe. I'm not a hero, but I'm not a coward.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I know we're going off at
So,
tangents here, but you can't talk about flat Earth for 3 hours. I'm sure you'll have some inspiration before we're done. But here's a little tip for you, because everybody's trying to think clearer and figure things out. And to do that, you use the brain, do you not? You need to use your brain. And the brain, primarily, for the vast majority of people, it runs on glucose. Okay, and when those channels start to break down and you're not getting enough energy to the brain, then your thoughts get clouded. And there is an alternative fuel for the brain, which is ketone bodies. And all you have to do is start introducing this into your daily routine. This is organic coconut oil. So when I have a cup of coffee, yeah, I put a big spoonful, instead of cream or milk, coconut oil in my coffee. And it's great for your health anyway, but it certainly helps you think clearer because it's an alternative energy source, and it helps you get rid of excess pounds, because most people are clinically, or certainly overweight, and a huge percentage are clinically obese. This is the best weapon against ill health as a food source, is coconut oil. It's a miracle, and it can actually reverse senile dementia, or stabilize it at the very least. But it's not used, and it's not prescribed because they can't make any money out of it. So,
well, of course not, because they have to use vaccines and medicines and antidepressants and diet pills and all that big pharma stuff to because that's an industry. I mean, they make you sick so they can sell you pills and sell you medicine, and that's another one of those vicious cycles.
And if you're going to have any salt on your food, then this is the one you want to use. This is the Himalayan pink salt. I think it has 84 or 86 trace elements and minerals. And coincidentally, the proportion is exactly the same as in human blood plasma. It's like that salt was made for humans. Pardon?
I'm going to have to get you to send me some of that, or send me a source for that, because I am a saltaholic. I'm a salt freak. I love salt. Salt and sugar, can't help it.
If you use the regular table salt, or buy products with the regular table salt, they use salt that has an additive in to help it pour.
Well, at least use port. I at least use real sea salt.
Well, I buy this. I buy in pounds. I buy about 60 pounds in weight of this a time, and it costs about $60. So it's very cheap. When you buy it in bulk, they deliver a big sack to your door, and I stick it in the bath and use it for all cooking and stuff like that. And if I go to the chip shop, for a takeaway, and they say salt and vinegar, I'll say, no thanks, I'll put my own on, because they use the toxic salt. So I use apple cider vinegar or balsamic vinegar and the Himalayan salt, and it brings out the flavor in your food.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Well, you can find Lawrence Wright on Facebook for sending him messages to buy some of his specialty little.
I don't sell salt. I don't sell coconut. All I sell is essential oils, and I make
essential oils, right?
New bespoke fragrances for people. Yeah, I give most of them away. At my last presentation, I went to a presentation by a guy who was talking about the corruption in the music industry, and I made a load of flat earth fragrances, and I was giving them away. I thought it was a good idea. Show Me the Curvature was one of them, and
oh no, you would.
It's flat, man.
It's flat, man.
Yeah, but I don't sell it. I'm not into flat earth to make money out of it. So everything I've made, I've given it away. But
is that crappy water still steaming there? Is that what I'm seeing?
If you want to have a look at it, then you can see that it's like. Can you see that now?
Oh, so disgusting! I cannot believe that. And none of that came out. Okay, so that's what was on top, settling to the bottom.
Yeah, you can see that. There's 2 glasses. Yeah, that's what you're drinking. Crazy as it may seem, that looks like pond slime, doesn't it? That's what's in tap water, but you cannot see it.
Okay, so where can somebody get one of those? What did you call that electrical thing?
You can go online, and it's called a dual precipitator.
Dual precipitator.
Precipitator, yeah.
Precipitator.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or if you want,
All right.
if you want to,
I can't wait to see all the videos coming out about that.
if you want to test your water, I've got all these wires here now. If you want to test your water at home to see how much impurities are in it, you can buy one for $10, and it's called a. Just go on eBay and type in TDS meter, total dissolved solids, and you just put this device in the water that's coming out of your tap, and it will tell you in parts per million what dissolved solids there are. It doesn't tell you what they are, but it tells you the number per million. And if you've got 400 or 500, then you know the water you're drinking is pretty toxic. And what happens is all these toxic components in the water, and the body can't get rid of them because they're not natural, or some of them are, but a lot of them aren't, and the body stores them in body fat because that's all it can do with it. And over time, the places that it stores the toxicity, those are the areas that you get ill. So once you start drinking clean water, you can start flushing some of these impurities out.
Well, you remember years ago when they used to say, don't drink distilled water. It's bad for you. It's useless. You're not getting any minerals. You're not getting anything good. You're just getting plain old water. And now they tell you, or people who have done the research say, no, distilled water is better because then you're not drinking all that crap that Lawrence just showed us for drinking.
Yeah.
So most people I know don't drink tap water. I mean, the sad thing is, though, okay, look at the industry that's created with all of these freaking plastic bottles everywhere. And then, I see the recycling trucks going down my street on Monday with puke and fumes all up and down the street, with collecting the plastic from the drinking bottle. And it's like this vicious cycle. What the hell were we thinking when we stopped with bottles? Glass bottles. Used to buy the milk in glass bottles, used to buy the, water or whatever, juices and things like that in glass bottles. And now hardly anybody has glass. It's a premium to buy something with glass. It's now all plastic. And, I don't even think they're recycling half of this crap, to tell you the truth. I know they've done documentaries on following the stream of recycling in the US. But anyway, what people need to start thinking about is, spend a little more time and energy thinking about what's going in and coming out of your body and how, and then and less time buying food that isn't even food. Now, most people already know that, but when you want to wake people up, you realize the complete comparison between people who eat crap, drink crap, live a bad lifestyle as far as, a little bit of exercise, a little bit of whatever, and those are trying to wake up. If they're like doing all that stuff, they're just almost too dumbed down to wake up. And that's part of the frustration, is you see these people taking vaccines and doing all of this, medications. And, my poor mom, she's 82 years old. And, she's pretty healthy, all things considered. And I've told the story before about a few years back, she got a flu shot and it just about killed her, put her in the hospital. After that, they treated her for every kind of damn thing except for admitting that she got a flu shot and almost killed her. And she got Bell's palsy in her face. They were treating her for Lyme's disease. She got shingles in her ear. She lost her hearing on that side and the Bell's palsy and all that, and it's never recovered. I mean, it's just all this stuff. And she was right before that, she was probably one of the healthiest 80-year-olds you'll ever meet. So all of these things are in combination. That's what part of being awake is taking care of yourself, being aware of what you're doing to your body and your family's body and friends and what you're drinking, and throw this stupid plastic water bottles away, because half of those probably are just tap water put in a spring water bottle, right? Or at the grocery store, behind the scenes.
Yeah, Nestle and Coca-Cola.
You should go and test some of those. You should buy some water that's called, good water in a plastic bottle at the grocery store, at the market, and bring it home and put it in your glasses there, and put your little device in there and see what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, think of it this way. Anybody who's watching who's not happy with how they feel about themselves, or they can't think clearly, or not as clearly as they like, next time you go to the supermarket and get your shopping, when you get home, take everything out of the bags and put it on the table, and have two piles of what you've bought. And on one side, put all the stuff that's dead, like meat and, dead animals, pasta, bread, anything that's effectively dead. And on the other side, put something that's got life in it, and then see what the percentage is. And you'll probably find that most of the stuff that you've got, if you're typical, is dead food. And if you eat dead food, then it's not very good for your health. So what I do,
not much energy in it. In other words, the energy's dead out of it too.
If you want to feel so much better, is this is what I do every day. So I have ginger, juiced, apples, juiced, organic. Get on organic ones if you can afford them. Carrots, juiced, lemons, juiced. And not just a bit. Have a couple of pints at least a day. Cayenne pepper, organic cayenne pepper. This is so healing for the body. It's highly alkaline. Take as much as your body will tolerate. And organic turmeric. This is another great healer. And if you just introduce those things that I've showed you there into your diet, if you can't do it every day, then 2 or 3 times a week, you should notice some good improvements in how you feel, in your weight, and
how you think,
and your general well-being. But most people don't. I go to the supermarket and I look at the people, what they're buying and they're putting in, and it's just all total shite. And you think this is.
Well, of course it is. If you have to put a name on it, like a brand name, it's really not anything good food. I mean, if it's a brand name, and I'm not talking about Sunkissed on a lemon or an orange.
Yeah.
I'm talking about a marketing name, brand name like that. So anyway, enough talking about that. It's just a little bit of heads up for people who, really want to have a little bit more thinking skills, feel a little better. I mean, I consider myself a pretty happy person, even though I have what I feel like the weight of the world on my shoulders because of all of the things that I know about and understand. Now, some people would say, oh yeah, well, everything you know is just a bunch of conspiracy theories. It's not even true. No, it really is true. There's shitty people doing shitty things to the other people in the world and to the world itself. So if you don't see that and you don't understand that, then number one, you're on the wrong show. But second, you're a part of the problem. You're the ones we're trying to wake up. You're the ones we're trying to slap out of it. And when I watch some kind of a TV show, which is pretty rare, but I do have Netflix and I have a Roku smart TV enough that picks up some things. I just don't have cable TV. And I watch some of these things and I realize how pretty brainwashing propaganda almost everything is. anymore. And I mean, a week ago, I came home at night. I was pretty tired. I was working a lot, and I would turn on the TV and just watch something, whatever show on Netflix. And one week I counted, I bet you 15 globes in shows that I was watching on TV. And I never noticed how many sets on TV before, or movies or whatever, had globes in them. And I'm thinking, is this a new introduction? Because it seems like I would have noticed, maybe not, but now I am. And I mean, I'm mortified, I think, about all these young children and all the young kids in school that are watching all these shows with globes everywhere. And I'm thinking, how are these kids ever going to wake up? And then I hear about parents, who say, well, I just can't even believe what my kids come home from school telling me they learned in school today, the Mars rovers or ISS stations or whatever. And somebody's quick to say in a Facebook thread, oh, you mean you're not homeschooling your kids? Oh, hell, not everybody can do that, right? I mean, and they either got a job or they're trying to make a living or whatever, just to stay in the game. And they can't homeschool their kids, or they haven't crossed that bridge yet. They haven't made that commitment for one reason or another. Plus, people are concerned about having their children taken away if they teach them about things like flat Earth and other of the well-known government conspiracies, and their kids go to school and forget the little lesson about, these are things we don't speak of at school. And the kids say something to the teacher, and next thing you know, we're having a little parent-teacher conference, and what kind of home environment are you providing for your children, and what are you feeding them full of these lies? Creepy stuff. Yeah,
that is the sad thing in America. But I mean, it's not almost as bad over here, but in America, you've got a system. According to what I've been researching into it, you have a systematic program there to get as many children as possible medicated. And apparently the school teachers have a little tick list. So if Johnny is fidgeting in his chair, they tick a box.
He needs some Ritalin.
And if Johnny puts his hand up to answer the question before the teachers finish asking the question, they tick a box. And if little Johnny's a bit too boisterous in the playground, well, he's got 3 boxes ticked now, so he's referred for medication, gets put on Ritalin. And probably some of the reasons why he is probably a little bit agitated is because he's being fed total shite food at home, full of emails and colours and additives. And
I guarantee you, Lawrence, if I was his kid in school today, and same with you, I guarantee both of us would be medicated.
Oh, we would.
Against our will. I mean, I saw a video on my Facebook feed today that just blew my mind about this little 6-year-old. No. Yeah. Was he 6? Yeah, he was 6. No, he was younger than that. He got 6 shots.
Yeah.
And 6 vaccine shots in one sitting at the doctor's office. And it had the nurse and the mother, and somebody was taking the video. I don't know who, but this kid was over the top flipping out. Okay. Like, not just because it was shots, but because he got agitated to begin with the first shot. Now they're holding him down, and now they're pinning him down, and they don't even give him a little bit of a breather to like get his shit together before they pound him with another shot. And it'll all be over soon, and you'll get a lollipop or whatever. And I'm thinking, my God, I have memories back to when I was 2 years old. I mean, good memories. And I guarantee you that would have at 3, 4, 5 years old, that would have traumatized me so badly that I'd still be screwed up today.
Yeah, I know. I mean, there's flat earthers out there, or people who are interested in flat Earth, and they're blissfully unaware of their lifestyles is fucking them up. I'll give you an example. Said I wouldn't talk about people, but what the hell?
Well, don't say a name. Just tell the story.
Right, well, there was a prominent flat earther who's put on a few pounds. He's been observed to put on a few pounds in the past months. You probably know who I'm talking about. And I was watching him do a YouTube from his kitchen, and I couldn't help noticing that he had Diet Coke on the shelf, which is, when you drink Diet Coke, the body can't tell the difference between that and regular sugar. The body thinks it's getting sugar. So what does the body do? It releases insulin to break down the sugar that's not there. And of course, what you end up doing is you actually lower your blood sugar, and then you get a craving for carbohydrates. So paradoxically, by drinking diet soda, you end up putting on more weight because you get the craving for carbohydrates.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, that's a vicious cycle. I've seen many people go through that cycle.
Yeah, and the children. I mean, one of the most.
Well, and here's the thing about it, Lawrence. It's just like everything else. When you start to tell people and make them aware of some of these kinds of truths, because these are also truths.
Yeah.
These are the ones they don't want to hear, because there is just as much of an addiction to that lifestyle that's bleeding over from the past. You think you're awakening, and you think you're, getting enlightened and shifting and whatever else words they're using now. But at the same time, there's certain things you don't want to let go of. And it's almost like you brought your 7 deadly sins with you to your enlightenment party. And, you smoke. I see you smoke all the time on camera. And there's people who would say, well, Lawrence, you got a lot of room to talk because you're smoking.
It's pure tobacco, hasn't God made it? Why else would God put tobacco on the planet?
I love it. Look right there on the front of the package, smoking kills. Oh, my God.
Well, this is Pueblo. It's pure tobacco.
Right. Listen, I smoked for 40 years, and it was probably one of the hardest things I ever gave up in my whole life, because I truly enjoyed smoking, and I felt like I needed it to stay balanced and calm and all those kind of things. But I gave it up only because I wanted to do that for myself. Okay. But they got people to smoke cigarettes through a propaganda campaign, especially women, back in the 40s and maybe it started in the late 30s, as a propaganda campaign to get women to start smoking and to feel empowered. And then suddenly smoking's bad for you. Well, it actually isn't the tobacco. And it's going to be people who are going to chastise me for saying this, but it's actually not the tobacco that damages you. It's all the freaking chemicals that they put in the cigarettes, in the tobacco nowadays, because of government regulations and whatever else. Plus, they literally now in the United States, I don't know if they do this in the UK, in packaged cigarettes, they put flame retardant, fire retardant in the tobacco and in the filters for people. The insurance lobby did that, passed that regulation, so that because people were falling asleep smoking in bed and burning themselves up, or the house or something. And so they literally put flame retardant. We'll stop this, only from the insurance industry's side of it. They less claims, but at the same time, people are smoking fire retardant. So when I smoked, I started noticing it myself, that if you didn't puff on the cigarette regularly, it would go out. Like, it used to be able to put a cigarette in an ashtray and it would burn all the way down to the filter and go out on its own. And now, if you don't puff it every 30 seconds, the cigarette goes out. Well, you know why? Because flame retardant's in there. And so that's what you're smoking, and that's probably going to give you cancer or some other awful black lung looking disease. So, you know, it's all part and parcel of consciousness and awakening and, you know, taking personal responsibility for yourself and your life and your health and so on. And it keeps you from having to be on those terrible medications, and it keeps you from having to starting to feedback after all this time.
Okay, you sound fine on this end, so you must be okay for everybody else.
No, you're starting to get out. We're burning into the time machine. So, but anyway, I wanted to stop it at 7:30 on my time anyway. So
That's okay.
So since we're having terrible sound problems, which you can't hear, but I can, which means if I can hear it, it's coming through to the audio and not the tape. So let's wrap it, or you might have to get out and come back in. You choose.
Well, what do you want to do? I mean, I'm probably just going to talk about. Have you got anything on fire, any news? What's put your attention this week?
I can't hear. I can't hear anything. You're cutting out. Drop it out and come back for a second more.
All right. Okay.
So anyway, we'll see. Yeah, I think it was Lawrence. His computer probably was getting a little hot. But anyway, this is typically not our normal conversation, but we decided a while back that we were going to touch on some other topics that were related to flat Earth and the awakening and so on. So that's what we're doing, and hopefully,
is that better?
Yeah, your camera's not there, but your voice is.
Oh, okay, we're back on now.
Okay, there you are. Okay, it's all fixed. That's what it was.
So, what's caught your attention this week in flat Earth? What have you seen that's?
Well, I'll tell you what has caught my attention, and that is the one thing that caught my attention today was a remark that was posted out of a video that Alex Jones made.
Oh, yeah.
Where he said he was, I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember exactly how he put it, but he wasn't raving lunatic about flat Earth in this little pitch. He mentioned it in a somewhat better light compared to the past, which, you know, in the past, he didn't call it flat Earth. He called it the Atlantean conspiracy, which, wow, wonder where that came from. And he was, you know, that's crazy, that's stupid, these people don't know what they're doing, they're, you know, all in a cult. And so I don't know whether that's a step in the right direction, but I do want to say, from my standpoint of having watched the antics of Alex Jones. Now, do not confuse that with me saying I've watched Alex Jones over the years, because almost from the very first time I ever listened to the guy, I thought he was a raving lunatic, and also thought that he was a counterintelligence agent, gatekeeper for the Illuminati that he always rails on about. But for him to mention it and to add that to President Obama and others of that echelon to start mentioning flat Earth more than a few times says something to me that it's either due to come out into another mass media hit again, and I can't predict how they'll deal with it. I've given up even trying to predict what the media is going to do with flat Earth. But yeah. What did you think about it?
I think he's deliberately found some kind of halfway house, so he's softening his approach to flat Earth, maybe with the intention of coming out as a flat earther, saying he's been researching it, and well, there's a lot of questions he can't answer, and lo and behold, he comes out and starts talking about the fucking AE map and the circling sun and all this. It wouldn't surprise me one bit if he did that, because then he does still have a big following, even though, you know, the diehard truthers know he's fake as fuck, and he's not a genuine truther. But maybe
Well,
that.
and if he does come out, and if it has any association with the AE map and the model of the circling circles, then that right there will scream to me that that's the direction they're going to try to introduce flat Earth down the road.
Yeah,
and that means the dome, and that means the aliens, and that means the aliens created Earth and put us all in this prison planet. Because hello, whose show is called Prison Planet?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
So
I mean, who else is it going to come from except that son of a bitch?
He's going to be a domer. Yeah, he'll probably have Mark Sullivan.
There's no doubt in my mind he has to come out to be a domer. And of course, you know, there'll be some crying, sobby, where I think we're going to have to bite the bullet and have Eric Dubay come on. And, you know, he tried to tell us years ago, but we wouldn't listen. But it'll be one of those. Mark Sargent and or Eric Dubay or both will come on, and you know, it'll be the Truman Show dome. Oh, I mean, my skin just crawled up the back of my neck just thinking about it.
Well, put it this way, Laurie. If you were the Illuminati and you got Alex Jones at your disposal and you wanted a false version of the flat Earth putting out there, who better to use?
Nobody. I mean, he's the man, the myth, the legend, the Mr. Prison Planet himself. Ta-da, you might as well have a PP cape and tights on, you know, with AJ on his chest and a Prison Planet cape with, and they mentioned in the video that exposed this, whatever, that, and it is true that Alex used to have a globe, all news programs always for years have had the big globe behind them as their sort of backdrop prop. And that slowly over a little bit of time here, Alex has moved from having a globe backdrop to having a kind of, I guess you'd call it a Mercator map as his backdrop. It's flat, but it's not the AE flat map. But boy, I'm gonna tell you what, if that pops up next, that AE map replaces his flattened out Mercator, then we know for sure where he's going.
Yeah.
So
maybe when they gave the name Prison Planet, that was planned well in advance.
No doubt. I mean, they plan these things decades in advance. I mean, they set that guy up to be Mr. Truther himself because of his, 9/11 truther stuff, even though he's one of the biggest gatekeepers of 9/11 truth out there.
Yeah.
I mean, go call in that show and say anything about no planes and you'll just get clicked off. You won't even get through. I mean, you're done. So, and especially don't say anything about nobody died or that it was a psyop or that it was all a false flag CGI created. I mean, you don't go anywhere near any of that. And so, Alex Jones definitely. Well, here's the other person. Okay, here's the other groups. And you know me on my gatekeepers. I got all of these gatekeepers down pat. I've been watching David Icke and where he's going to end up going with, because he's already Mr. Alien, Lizard, Reptile. Okay. And so who knows? They could put all of these top echelon truther gatekeepers together at some point back on the same script, and lo and behold, there won't be any stopping that information. I mean, that will be all the gurus coming out with the model, the map, the legend, baby. So I don't know, but I'm like I said, I'm not going to make any prediction. That's about as much prediction as I'm going to make, but that's, more or less the scenario I see possibly playing out. And if I were the Illuminati, that's what I would have done.
Yeah, one of the
That's
things.
how I would have played it.
One of the things that caught my attention was, I think it came out yesterday, was this astronomical clock. I think it was in Prague or somewhere like that, and it had got the AE map in the middle, and it was supposed to be whatever 700 or 800 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But the clock face was pristine, like it had been made yesterday. It
I
was
know.
like,
Kept that
somebody
really
put
clean
it there.
and in good working condition. Yeah, that's the one
Yeah.
that has the astronomical,
Yeah.
well, all of it. There's astrology symbols. There's sun, moon, day, time, hour, minute, all that going on.
And it just happened to have the AE.
It was completely steampunk too. I mean, you couldn't have made it any more class A steampunk. As a matter of fact, I would think Mark Sargent, with his gamer capacity, or if I were, how does he say that stupid thing? From a game designer standpoint, I mean, he could have devised that himself, because it reminds me of some of the other kinds of ideas he's come up with. But again, it's all of these things are being dropped in. And, of course, people will comment and say, well, that's just because there's a whole bunch of researchers out there digging around and looking at all this stuff now. That's why it's all coming out slowly but surely now. Sure, yeah, that's exactly how it's happening. Yeah. No, I wouldn't question that at all. Sure, they're just billions of flat Earth researchers are combing through hundreds of years old microfilm fishes for old maps and documents and so on.
Yeah.
And the extended plane one, the map that we were talking about last week, that's supposed to be 1,000 years old, that has, another 16 continents surrounding the AE map is at the center, and then we have like a whole bunch more continents out there floating around, hidden continents.
Yeah. And then what else came out yesterday? Well, the Flat Earth Museum opened yesterday. Did you see that article?
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Wow. Well, what a coincidence for it to be opening yesterday.
Yeah. Well, see, when we start to notice that the distractions for the flat Earth are starting to outweigh the distractions coming from NASA, like new planets, new discoveries, new space shit, okay, versus flat Earth shit coming out, then we'll start to see it balancing out. Then we'll know that we're headed for the breakout of flat Earth. And here's the other thing that And I'm not going to say this as a warning, because that's really not what it is. But to me, there's a responsibility from and for those of us who got in this thing earlier, a year ago or 2 years ago, or even 6 months ago, to not be the guides or the gurus or the gatekeepers of the information about flat Earth, but to be the warning that of all the things that we've already taken the time to look into. A lot of people don't actually do any flat Earth research. They call themselves researchers if they watch a bunch of videos. And I'm sorry, folks, but that's not research, okay? Research is not watching other people's research, unless you watch everybody's research and compare all of it, okay? That can be considered research. But just cluing into one person that you like the way they sound, or you like the way they move, or whatever, or wiggle in their chair. If that's research to you, then you're missing the point, and you're missing the boat. Because if, not using Lawrence and I as an example, but using what we've done as an example of questioning the map, when we first started doing that, we may as well have been heretics. I mean, completely and utterly flat earth heretics. What are you trying to do? Debunk flat earth? Aren't you flat earthers anymore? How do you call yourself a flat earther when you're trying to tear our map apart? We need that map. Without that map, we got nothing. And it's like, no, we have plenty. Okay, we have horizons and distances and charts and all kinds of stuff, films and footages and everything. We don't have to have a fake map. Okay, that's a detriment. That's not a good thing. So
yeah, I'll tell you something.
Once you discover that the map doesn't work, it is your duty to follow our research and find out why it doesn't, and not just get mad and push back and say these guys are bad for flat earth. This is the good, this map and this model.
Yeah, and when you have leading flat earthers producing videos where the evidence itself, if presented correctly, shows that the earth is flat, when they deliberately make errors that ball earthers can easily latch upon, then you've got to ask the question, were these errors made deliberately or were they just ignorant? So there was a leading flat earther who put out one of his videos this week, and it was regarding the distance between, I think it was Hull and Grimsby in the UK, and the straight line distance was something like 15 miles, and he was putting it out as 60 miles. And of course, a ball earther latched on this, and of course, anybody new to it who looks at this information that's put out and does, a bit of cursory research into checking out the information, if they look at these so-called proofs and find out that the data is incorrect in itself, it may well turn them off the subject because it will be, taken as being incorrect. When in fact, even with the correct information we put out, the flat earth is still true. So they're deliberately making mistakes that, that shouldn't be made.
Well, and to add to that, not just passing on the same info without checking it, but why pass on something that doesn't need to be there? To me, there's, people need to understand the difference between disinfo and misinfo. Okay, misinfo is when you accidentally passed on something that you didn't check out, and you can retract it, and no harm, no foul. Okay, disinfo is intentional, and so misinfo is accident, disinfo is intentional. Disinfo packaged with truth is propaganda. Okay, and it is manipulation, and it is gatekeeping, and there's lots of other words for it. And so, and which one of them, I probably just a little too much aluminum in my water this week. Sock puppet or one of those things. Okay, so the point is why say there's an ice wall, mile-high ice wall, or even 500 feet ice wall all the way around flat Earth, unless you've seen it, unless you've, got footage, or you can show us not just a little part of it. You can't just show like a few miles of it and then say this goes all the way around the circle of the flat Earth. Okay, that's not misinfo. That's disinfo, because you can mislead people who do not take the time to research, and they're so hyped up. They're new flat earthers, and they're so jacked up to get more people to see and believe in flat Earth like them, because that's how things work. Okay, they go and tell their friend, and the circle and the sun and moon go around, and there's a miles high ice wall all the way around the perimeter, and that's what holds the water in, and that's what supports the dome, and you're just like, no. You can't say that. You have no proof of that. Why do you need to do that fantasy crap? You know, there's enough reality without having to go there. That's where I get pissed off.
And where these errors are pointed out and they are factually proven beyond any reasonable doubt, then a genuine flat earther would put out a video to correct his mistake and say,
yes, they would.
Put this video out. I've made these errors. I'm very sorry. This is the correct information, and I'll try not to do it again. But they just
like
don't.
We would put out a video that says, "Pardon us, this Collignon or diamond-shaped map that we showed you months ago, that all the measurements fit on, of all the continents and all the distances for all the flights and all the times of days, of dates, and blah 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 blah. We were wrong. We take it all back." We would say that if anybody had come forward to debunk it.
Yeah.
And the only thing they can say is, how do you get from east to west and back to east again without, you know, Pac-Man? Well, that's yet to be discovered. That has nothing to do with the shape of the map. That has nothing to do with comparing that map with the globe and the AE and the Mercator and the Gleason and everybody else's map and saying all the measurements fit on this map. That's all we're saying. We're not saying that the Earth is a big diamond. We're just saying this is where everything fits on here. Okay. And then we also said that the sun and the moon goes in a straight line from east to west, day after day after day. The rest is fill in the blank. We don't know the rest. Okay. But we've got 2 points of probably 500 points figured out. Okay. You want to help us figure out some more of the points, or you want to bitch because Pac-Man? Okay. And so that's another part of the problem, is people being in competition with one another for, I'm going to be the one that's going to discover the flat earth map all by myself, and I'm not going to share my information with anyone else, and I'm not going to listen to anyone else or get any input or anything, because I'm going to patent that son of a bitch, okay, or whatever, and I'm going to make $1 million selling the book with the map in it, or whatever it is they got in their head. Okay, it isn't going to happen that way, people. But it certainly isn't going to happen either if you just keep making new replicas of the AE map with the spinning sun, moon, circle, dome.
Yeah, I know, and it's so ridiculous, because if the sun really was circling, then you would see the sun, you know, it's not going to be east-west, it's got to be a circle. The sun's got to be observable from somewhere on Earth in the north, and it isn't, apart from allegedly in the midnight suns, where it's certainly visible in terms of shadows.
Well, that's another one. We don't know if we're seeing the same sun. There's another one. People say, oh my God, now you're getting into two suns. That's so not in the Bible. You can't go there, because that, you'd lose me then. You know, wait.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? The greater sun to rule the day, and the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. There's no description that there might be another lit up entity out there, okay, that isn't talked about. Planets are talked about, stars are talked about, but maybe there's another thing that just didn't get a name and nobody's discovered it yet, okay, or it has been discovered, but we don't get to know what the name is. But let's call it Nibiru and scare the crap out of everybody that's going to come crashing down on your head, and create an extinction level event, more fear. So, you know, at the end of the day, there's enough truth to talk about flat Earth, and just like there's enough truth to talk about the Federal Reserve, even though we've never had an audit, a full audit, even though nobody knows how they do their bookkeeping, even though we have no idea how they do their quantitative easing and so on and so forth. There's a whole conspiracy about all of that we don't only know maybe a quarter of the knowledge of the information about how that whole scam is working and been working. Yet millions of people lose their home to foreclosure. People get shut down for, they can't, they're homeless because they had to file bankruptcy and couldn't pay their credit cards and their school loans and so on and so forth. But yet, that's okay because we want to end the Fed. We know enough to know that, but we can't have, flat Earth without having a complete map and model and expose this information that we already have. Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, it's stretching the same rubber band in two different directions. So that's all we've been trying to say for months and months and months on these Hangouts is that if you're going to question everything, you got to question everything. You even got to question the map. And just because you walked in the door to the Flat Earth Party and everybody's got their cocktails already that has their little map on the front of their glass and they're all there and everybody's partying and hey, this is the Flat Earth Hangout. You walk in with a square on yours.
Yeah.
I got a square glass.
Laurie, we've got 10 minutes to go. So I sent you a video when I first met you on Facebook, and it had something of an impact on you. And it was about an artist called Peter Teekamp, where there was evidence that he was reincarnated from an artist 100 years ago. Do you just want to briefly surmise to the audience what conclusions you drew from watching that documentary?
Well,
because you're an artist.
I don't think that. Well, I guess what impacted me is, as an artist, every creative person has their own whole life to create their style, their ability, their little nuances about how they create, how they do their art, make their art. So I found it pretty intriguing that the styles and the similarities and output was so close or so similar. And so it's not really a whole lot different than watching some of these people that they say are reincarnated with memories of a past life or past memories. There have been children who have been born who remember themselves in a past life, they say, and they can tell all kinds of stuff, but as a little bit of more time goes by and they grow a little bit older, they forget it all. So maybe some people have recall better, or like I said earlier, maybe it is some kind of an electrical DNA memory input that follows us down through generations, is all I can think of. Maybe that's how it works.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that struck me the most was that these two artists, and the modern day artist, hadn't heard of the one from 100 years ago or so. The guy from 100 years ago or so ago, on every picture that he painted, he hid a tiny portrait of himself somewhere on the picture. And the modern day artist did exactly the same thing. And the modern day artist was able to identify where the old artist had actually hidden this picture of himself, and they could paint in this. They did so many pictures that were strikingly similar.
Right.
Their wives were the same, their habits were the same, their body structure was the same. It was just phenomenal. So if you want to go and watch it,
so maybe there is such a thing as, just like this Mandela effect is some kind of a shift. Maybe there's a repetition that happens every so many years of, if you're the creator, and you're going to keep creating and adding, because I mean, if you're the creator, we're not on a self-sustained thing yet. I mean, the earth is not just, he didn't just like create it and then go, okay, you're on your own. Okay, there's maintenance, there's species dying out, and there's new species coming along. I mean, right, there's new plants, there's new birds. They call it evolution, you can call it whatever you want, but I'm sure there's some repetition. I mean, even every creator has a style, right? So if I'm going to create something and I'm going to do it well, then the next time I create something, I'm going to probably impart some of the things that I've learned from doing something before into the new thing that I'm doing, right?
Yeah. And
so maybe some of the patents are being reviewed.
I'll tell you what else was caught my attention this week, and it got nothing to do with flat Earth. If you've got the picture, stick it up on the screen, because somebody was sorry. That was that picture where you had to identify what you were looking at. You remember what we, it was that picture of a wall.
Oh.
Stick it up, Laurie. Let people have a look at it and see if they can identify what they're looking at. Have you got it?
Yeah, hold on a second. I don't think I downloaded it, but we'll see.
I can find it. Don't worry, I've got it.
Did you download it, or
I've
just
got it on a Facebook message, so I can dig it out and stick it up. There we are.
Yeah, you probably have to, because my wall's pretty cluttered. It'll take me 10 minutes.
I'll find it. Here we go. Is that? Oh no, it's on my face. It's on my page.
Oh, I got it. Okay, hold on. Let me do a screen capture.
Stick it up.
I haven't done a screen capture yet today, so I'm going to do it.
Yeah. So if you're watching and you get a chance to post a message on our thing, tell us what you see here. It's so
okay. Here it is.
But if you don't know, you'll see. When I saw it, I didn't get it. It took me a few minutes to realise what I was actually looking at.
Okay, so this is the guy who actually shared it. This is not my version. This is the guy that shared it. But this is a photograph of a brick wall, and the guy's name is Aaron Bevan. So you can probably go there and share it. But if you look at this, it says this is one of the best optical illusions I've seen. If you see it, don't spoil it. Just like and share. And so it does kind of hold you captive for a little while, trying to figure out what the heck am I looking at and what do I see there. But one of the reasons why I shared it was because I love optical illusions, and we deal with them with our vision every single day. And people see things that they didn't really see, or they think they see something and that's not at all what it is. And we've seen the ones where you have the two glasses. It looks like a lady with her legs spread apart, or you've seen all these different optical illusions. And this one is the kind that says to me that, people think they see the sun getting smaller, or just going away, setting, and it doesn't get any smaller. And then the next person will come along and say, no, it's going away in a straight line, and it's just getting smaller. It's actually moving. It's not the earth spinning. And you get into these arguments. So anyway, the whole idea is that what we think we see of our world has been so manipulated by the explanation that government, bureaucrats, and scientists and so on tell us what we're seeing, just like the horizon line. It looks like the boat goes below the horizon, when actually if you get out the telescope or the binoculars and look, there it is. But now it looks like it's floating above the water, and the bottom is missing, and no, that's curvature. And so people get into these gigantic arguments, and somebody has to be right, and neither one of you are right if you don't agree, because you have to be able to agree what is reality, I think, at least to the point where you don't believe one person believes you live on a flat earth and the other person believes you live on a globe, and you're both looking at the same thing and coming up with two different explanations for it. Right, Lawrence?
Exactly. And keep drinking the Kool-Aid. Actually, we don't know what Kool-Aid is over in the UK. What is Kool-Aid?
You don't know what Kool-Aid is?
It's not. What is
flavored water. You get a little packet of colored, sugary flavored water. It's either lemon lime or orange or, some fruity flavor. Like you would. Do you know what popsicles are?
Ice Pops.
Ice Pops. Okay, all the flavors that Ice Pops come in. Kool-Aid comes in that, but it comes in a little packet of powder, and you add it to water and stir it up, and it's horrible, terrible, fruity tasting fake juice.
Is it about on the same level as Twinkies?
Yeah, well, yeah. Total empty calories, worth nothing to eat or drink, but bad for you. Sugary, nasty, fake sugar stuff. Yeah. So glad you got found out what Kool-Aid is. So don't drink the Kool-Aid.
Right. Okay. And don't eat the Twinkies.
All right. So I've enjoyed it. Thanks, Lawrence. Thanks for everybody who's been hanging out with us and watching and listening and so on. And careful what you drink and eat from here on out. And see you next Sunday. Yep. Same bat time, same bat channel, same flat channel. Okay. Good night, Lawrence.
Yep. See you later, folks. Good night.